I had something kind of, you know, I don't want to, I guess, convict me today of the type of Christian that I feel like I am sometimes. And I felt pretty bad
So
about all that.
you are in the story of David right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
Kind of what
I'm
inspired
in
this thought.
Samuel, and I'm in the part of David, and David is beloved by God, right? He's and it said that he's a man after God's own heart, um, you know, and David doesn't have the easiest story. I mean, he's running for his life a lot of times. Things aren't going bad, and he's crying out to God at times and weeping, and other times, he's praising him. He sings to God all the time. He does all these things, and he's having this trial. And this is somebody who has an intimate relationship with God, right? And I think another version of this is Job, the most horrific answer to that. And I was just sitting there thinking, because again, we were in a rough patch, last week, and I find that I get so frustrated with God, mad at God, when I don't get my way.
I think that's a common experience. It's not necessarily the right way to process things, but it's a common experience.
But what a trying to find a word here. Without cussing. Anyways, what immature
way of handling it.
Crybaby, disrespectful. Like, that's like me, complaining about the smallest things when I have this world to live in. I'm here. I have you. I have baby B. I have a life. I have an amazing life. And yeah, not every day is sunshine and rainbows. And when I suffer a setback, instead of looking at it as God testing me or challenging me to get stronger, I look at it as, well, I'm supposed to be a Christian now, and good things are supposed to happen to me. And I don't know where I've seen that in the Bible, but, I see people getting lit on fire. I see people being, crucified upside down. I see people, getting decapitated. I see a lot of persecution.
Yeah, I think if anything, becoming a Christian, becoming a better Christian, essentially, a lot of times the experience is that you experience more trials because Satan's pissed.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so, anyways, a lot of people skip through the Old Testament, right? Everybody wants to just go to Jesus. And I find going through the Old Testament so valuable. And this is just another case and point where I'm going through another story of David, and it just hit me.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing, God doesn't owe me a thing.
No.
He doesn't owe any of us a thing. We owe everything to God. And the fact that, I get upset or I get frustrated because things aren't going to plan, or I feel like I'm entitled because I work hard, things are supposed to work out for me. And maybe they will. I mean, historically, if you look at my life from, previous days to now, if everything worked out, I wouldn't be here.
No one would ever have the story they've had. And I think ultimately most people are grateful that they are where they are. And I think you just have to remember, it's so hard when you are in it to have perspective, but you have to remember that the trials are what strengthen your relationship with God. The trials are what bring the blessings on the other side and make you appreciate them more. But when you're in your own trial, it seems like, the biggest hill to climb, and the biggest injustice that you are having to go through that. I think
it shows a lack of trust of God too. I think that it shows, I know better than him, and that's obviously not the case. There's very few things I know better than anyone, never mind God himself. Well,
I don't think all trials are caused by God either. I mean, we get ourselves into a jam most of the time, and he's going to kind of take what we give him and work it for the best, and try to make us learn something from the trial or grow from the trial or whatnot. But I think we often blame God for our struggles and on where we are in life when we're at the bottom. but I don't think that he put us there necessarily. A lot of times we got there on our own, and he's going to help us out if we let him.
And I think this comes to that whole, biblical verse that Jesus talks about, don't worry about tomorrow. There's enough worries today.
Yeah. I need to work on that one.
Yeah, we all need to work on that one. But, it's just like this whole, our whole debate, our whole struggle that we had last week, I think really highlighted that stress is destructful. It doesn't serve any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really worrying about things that most likely will never come to pass.
Yes. Yep.
And is it worth blowing up your day, your life now for something that most likely is never going to happen?
I think of how much time I waste stressing, anxiety, all of that, how much time we waste going in circles and conversations, kind of in disagreement on what the next is going to be. And as you said, a lot of times none of the things that we're talking about ever kind of come to fruition.
Yeah.
And then by wasting that time and not focusing on kind of what's at hand, we make our stress worse by having that stack up.
Yeah. I would like to also say that, I find my relationship with God strengthening because I've cut out all the other noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't watch news anymore. I mean, I read the headlines and I will read the news, but I'm not watching talk radio or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have it on
all day. It was on 24/7.
In the background, and then we would sit and watch, a few shows specifically. But yeah, I mean, it's a radical shift for us.
And I mean, I'm still staying up to snuff, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm watching Tucker Carlson highlights and going back, and I use the Epic Times. I do check out Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
I still am supporting them in certain ways, just not all of them. A vast majority of them I don't. But, as well as looking at some things on, Newsmax with Carl Higbie, looking at, OAN. But the main thing is I've cut out most things. So now when I have time, I find that I'm desiring to be in the Word more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that relationship with God is strengthening the more than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of supernatural that the more time you spend in that book, and reading it, the deeper your relationship and the more internal reflection that you have. Like, again, the one that I would think that had a profound effect on me that maybe it was obvious to everyone was again, I love animals. So the amount of animal sacrifice and the cost of sin.
Yeah.
Where, compared to now where people sin like it's nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't have got that if I didn't read about thousands upon thousands upon thousands or millions, whatever, animals that were sacrificed to even just make it through a year.
Well, and I've read that before, and before I just didn't sit well because, like you, I'm an animal person, and so it's just I am ashamed to say that my initial reaction when I first was reading that was, what a waste, and then it's like, but that's for God. So of course you can't look at it as a waste, but it's still hard to wrap your mind around the scale of that when you read of kind of everything that they have to do for every sin and all that. So kind of through conversation with you, kind of putting that together of, that is the cost of sin. And then pulling that forward to our modern day approach. Helps me understand. I still don't like it, but helps me understand it.
Yeah. And then also, we've also talked about this at length in our house, that how and when did it shift from Old Testament to New Testament? Who has to follow the Old Testament rules? Who has to follow the New Testament rules? And all that. And I found, if you haven't seen that part or that episode, I'll put it in the tag up here on the replay. But it was Wednesdays with Ken, not BYOB, but Biblical Life Support that we did on Wednesday. It was really good. And we dove extremely deep into just one or two topics. And again, it was so profound. I learned so much again. And, I know that a lot of atheists would trip up on those things.
Yeah.
So, giving them some stuff that will help them reason through things, I think is very important. Another thing is I was giving my testimony today, and I find, when I was talking to somebody about my testimony, that I now am saying that I have 3 dates or 3 baby steps, really. I have from atheist to agnostic, then to rationally Christian, and then spirit-filled Christian.
I heard you using those terms today, yeah.
And that is totally where I went. And how it went for me. And I, there was still an extra step for me.
Do you use the ORW experience as a spirit-filled transition?
Yeah. So, because that's where I got my healing, and I really felt that it came, where, that I felt the change in me.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, you said my voice even sounded different on the phone.
It did. He was sneaking phone calls. Shame on him. He wasn't supposed to. But like day 2 into it, his voice was there was just this peace that I just heard through the phone that I'd never experienced with him before. And I think, and I also, if I can be honest, I also heard it leave a little bit, after a little time passed after ORW and the world came back in months later. Like you kind of rode that spirit filled for a while. But then we still didn't have a great church family here, and just kind of the ways of the world worked itself back in, and a little bit of that tone of voice left. But I would say it's back.
Well, yeah, and I think that, having a church and being around believers is key, but, all you need is really this, right? You just need this and spending time with it, and you and your wife spending time with it, and you and your family spending time with it is really all that's needed. Adding fellow believers of Christ in there, brothers and sisters, always awesome.
Yeah.
But you can do a lot of good and get a lot of different, get where you need to be just with that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I don't know if there's anything on the faith side that you want to talk about. I know that you've been struggling to get in the Word, and how is that affecting you? So here I am leaning into it.
Yeah, when we started the 90-day crucible, I had gotten into a solid routine, I felt, and I was really loving my mornings. That kind of cleared space for me to have Bible time and all of that. And then, I don't know, a month ago, so like a month into it, I guess, B started having some rough nights, and so then I didn't have the energy to wake up on the same schedule. So I kind of missed my God time in the mornings, and I got knocked out of my routine, and I haven't gotten that back, which I need to. I need to find, even if B screws up my mornings, I need to find a different time for it, because it doesn't take much to knock you off of that routine.
No.
When you are in, especially kind of the more baby stage, like I am, on kind of being dedicated to putting time aside for the Word. I still say prayers kind of throughout the day, and I try to talk to God throughout the day. But as far as leaning into the Word, I've fallen behind on my reading plan, and I don't like how that feels. So right. I want to, before I get too far off the path, I want to come back to it.
Well, I think that's the key to doing a good Bible plan with people who are going to hold you accountable. Chris, I was talking to Chris from Texas Angel Oil the other day, and, he's like, he got ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I was ahead for a while, too. I was doing a couple days.
He got ahead, and he's like, I think I'm going to stop because, doing this by yourself kind of isn't that cool. And I'm like, I'll be there. I'm catching up. I'll be there, because I had fallen 14 days behind at one point.
Yeah, I'm close
and then
to
I
that
just
now.
Powered through to get where I'm at, and that was the best thing I ever did. Yeah. Now that I'm back into it, and I got to make sure, because that's how the enemy wins, guys. He gets that one little gap of separation, and then he fills it and expands it. And
yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that in this same couple of weeks that I fell away from my structured God time, that I also have been struggling personally, mentally, emotionally more than I was at the time when I was reading more.
Right.